I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon. This is episode number 189, and today we are back with a late season edition of our Rut Radio episodes, and we're getting updates from deer hunters across the country about the latest on deer movement, deer behavior, and the tactics that you can be working on right now to fill that late season tag. All right, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Sitka Gear. And here today, we are doing one of our Rut Radio episodes in which we are checking in with a series of hunters from all across the country to get the latest on what's happening in the whitetail woods. So we're talking to people about the deer activity they're seeing, how deer are behaving, how they are reacting to different sets of weather factors and conditions, what kind of tactics are working, all that kind of good stuff, so that when you head to the woods next, you have the most recent and relevant information to help you fill those final tags of the season. And even though November's in the rearview mirror and a lot of running activity we would expect to see is in the past, there's still a lot of good hunting to come. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. With me to help us do that is the one and only tag fill-in machine, Spencer Newharth. It's almost ridiculous. Like it's hard for me to even know what I've been doing wrong to have such a season opposite of yours, because it seems like everywhere I go, everything I do, the deer are doing the opposite thing. But you, every place you go, every time you're in the woods, seemingly you are punching a tag. You just killed an elk in like 7 minutes or something probably like that. Can you tell us really quick what happened there?
Well, in South Dakota, we have the Black Hills here, just an island of mountains in the western part of the state. And although a cow elk to most people further west of here is not a big deal, in South Dakota there's only like a few hundred of those tags given out. And so I am a flatlander, being from the eastern part of the state, so getting a cow elk was really cool. And that was December 1st that I was able to fill that tag. That was the opening day for that hunt. So it was just a fun way to open up the winter months here in South Dakota. And since I am pretty much done deer hunting at this point, that was a cool way to take my mind off of not being able to chase whitetails anymore. And it was a rifle hunt for a cow, like I said. So I am now looking on to 2018 for the most part with that cow elk tag filled.
Man, that is awesome. And killing a cow elk, killing any elk is such an accomplishment. And just that meat, oh my gosh, that meat is so good. I'm very, very jealous that you've got a freezer full of elk. So you killed a giant whitetail with your bow in a couple days. You killed another big South Dakota whitetail with a rifle. You killed another big mule deer with a rifle. You killed a cow elk with a rifle. What'd you kill? Some kind of swans, some like paddlefish. You killed like a world record turkey. What haven't you killed this year, dude?
We're running out of things. We better just get to 2018 so I can get some new tags in my pocket.
Oh gosh, dude, that's exciting.
Yeah,
So,
I am.
Just pass along some of this luck to the rest of us and our listeners. And that being said, do you have anything as far as a deer activity report or anything that you want to share for South Dakota or anything? Or do you want me to share anything from my recent experiences?
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about South Dakota. If I still was hunting, I'd be very excited for this coming week because we just got like one of our first good snowstorms, and that snow was going to stick around for a while. And so up until now, we've had some really mild weather, like days where it was hitting 70 degrees, setting record temperatures, and this big snowstorm we've gotten and this cold front where it's in the teens on a regular basis, that's going to change a lot of things. It'll change where the deer are bedding. They're definitely going to seek out where they can get out of the wind, where they can get out of the cold. So those shelter belts are going to become a big deal, and anything else where it's going to push them out of the CRP and push them out of some of those sloughs most likely, and then move them to the food sources that, we always look for in December. So I'd be really excited for this coming week and looking forward to patterning some bucks that have not been doing a normal winter pattern up until now.
Yeah, ditto from here in Michigan. It's been very mild lately, and just kind of last night and today we've had a cold front pushing through. It was in the 50s. This what's today? Today's Tuesday. Is that right? So it was in the 50s over the weekend, and now today and tomorrow it's dropping to like 20s. So good cold front. I'm going to start hunting here again. I'm excited about that. I think that, like you said, while we don't have the snow where I'm at, I do think the cold temperatures will get deer moving. Interestingly, I won't go into too much detail about what actually happened, but I was hunting in Ohio the past 4 days. Well, last Thursday through Sunday, I was hunting down in Ohio. And even though it was warm out, it was pretty warm, like 50s, I saw a pretty decent amount of deer activity on a late season food source, cut cornfield, and I saw mature bucks 3 out of 4 nights, moving pretty early in the day too, an hour before dark or so. And I'm wondering if that could be attributed to the moon situation we had last week. Now, we've talked moon on the Wired Hunt podcast a lot. I still don't know what I think, but a lot of good hunters do say that there's some kind of correlation. Who knows? But people like the Drurys or a number of other folks like to talk about when you've got a moon that is rising early in the evening during the daylight hours still, or when you've got a moon that's still up in the morning before, or after daylight in the morning. So last week we had a moon that was rising early. It was rising like an hour and a half before dark. And I spoke with Terry Drury the day that I started hunting down there, and he was talking about the fact that he thought these next few days were going to be really good for afternoon movement because of that. So I don't know if that was the case or not, but it was just an interesting thing that I did see the sightings that you're supposed to see with that kind of moon phase. I can't say confidently that was the case, but it was an interesting observation that I thought was worth passing along.
Well, another Ohio report we have this week is from Eric Long at Drumming Log Wildlife Management. Then we go to Alabama from Southern Roots Outdoors is Adam Bice. Then we talk to Gerard Cicelli from Rat Getter Scents in New Jersey. And then we go to my home state of South Dakota. And at Daybreak Ranch, we talk to Jake Gregus.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to tuning into this one myself and getting the reports. And then I'm going to try to take some of that info, put it to use on my next couple days of hunting here, because I'm excited to get in the woods and try to make something happen in Michigan. So unless you have anything else to add, Spencer, I think we should wrap this one up and get to those reports.
I don't have anything new, but you sound rejuvenated, Mark. It sounds like you are ready to get hunting again. A little different than the last couple times I've talked to you.
Yeah, I am feeling better. I think I'd kind of ran myself into the ground in November between, how much I was hunting, and then I was traveling so much towards the end of November that it feels good to be home. I've caught up on sleep, taken a little time away from the woods, and then now I'm back at it, rejuvenated. I'm excited, and I just feel like, it's been a tough season for me so far, but maybe that's because I'm due for a great December. So that's what I'm going to hope for.
That's got to be it. I'll talk to you next week, Mark.
Thanks, Spencer.
Before we get to our first update, though, let's pause to thank our sponsors at Sitka Gear. And for this week's Sitka story, we're joined by Mike Massey, who tells us about a Yukon hunt that ended with one of the biggest caribou in Pope and Young history.
All right, so I'll tell you about a fun little hunt I had this year. It was the Yukon hunt. It was my caribou that actually made the top 50 Pope and Young, 8th largest caribou killed with a bow in the last 8 years. So it was really pretty cool. Special hunt to me. My dad had passed away the exact day I flew out into the bush, a year from that day. We got out there, got to camp. Goodness, the horses were gone. Took us 6 hours to get the horses back to base camp. So the next day we spiked out, 8-hour horseback ride. Setting up the wall tent, we noticed some caribou working the edge of this plateau that was about a mile away from spike camp. I kept going on there periodically, taking a look, and to my surprise, I went back there one time and just saw this thing, and I haven't seen too many caribou. I mean, I probably put it into maybe a couple hundred caribou in my life, but I called the guide over here, and I said, you got to look at this thing. Well, he basically told me to get my stuff now in very nice terms. Well, about an hour and a half later, we had that thing on the ground, stalked up, made an amazing stalk, knew our terrain. What an absolute, just one heck of a hunt. You know, just knowing your terrain from the guide, that's how we got this thing killed. Really, really cool hunt.
On Mike's hunt, he was wearing Sitka's mountain pants and mountain vest. If you'd like to create a Sitka story of your own, or to learn more about Sitka's technical hunting apparel, visit sitkagear.com. All right, and joining us on the line first is Eric Long, the owner of Drumming Log Wildlife Management in Ohio. Now, Eric, in Ohio, what would you say the buck activity has been lately on a scale of 1 to 10?
Out of 1 to 10, I would say it's a 5. And the reason being is that we're coming off our, firearm season, our gun season, which is a week long. It ended this past Sunday, and, everything's just disoriented. Everything's kind of messed up. But the activity, like off the cameras and stuff, it's just starting to pick back up. They're starting to be on their feet again and, doing some little bit of chasing still. So
with coming off that gun season, would you say that changes where the deer are bedding, or does it make them more nocturnal? What do you think's going on there?
All the above. The amount of pressure. Ohio, we like to think of it as being a rural state, and it kind of is, but it's getting very urbanized, and it's just amount of pressure, amount of cover versus pressure. So these deer, they get thrown off their pattern a lot, which is obvious. Everybody kind of knows that from, the Orange Brigade out there, if you will. They're just kind of, they're nocturnal. They're not really eating where they should be eating, where we'd like to have them eat. But it's going to take a little bit.
So as somebody looking to counter that, what are your tactics then for this next week or so as those deer are, coming off that gun season?
Patience. Yeah. The hardest thing to do is be patient, because they will get settled down. I mean, being in the Midwest, obviously it's been mild weather. But the forecast is, it's going to get back to normal, some snow, some cold, which will get them back on their feet, and looking for those food sources. I know when you do some management, those bucks, when you practice QDM, it's a short, intense rut, and those deer lose a lot of weight. So they're going to be wanting to, get their weight back on them for this upcoming growing season. So,
do you feel an influx of new bucks this time of year once they're looking for food and coming off the pressure of that gun season?
Yeah, I mean, not like what you would think. I mean, at least, obviously it's, all that's regional and property to property. But as a whole, just the places that I've been managing and stuff, we really don't have that per se, because they're larger properties. That's why, but the guys that own 50, 60 acres, obviously they're going to have an influx of new deer, in those areas. But as a whole, it's not too crazy.
Well, looking beyond this next week, like you just talked about having some patience. So the rest of December, what would be some of your favorite tactics to use to maybe get a mature buck on the ground?
Food. Yeah, food. Those deer are run by two things, ladies and their belly. And so it's just food, especially in the harsh conditions, weather-wise. They're going to be on their feet looking for food, and not necessarily food plots, especially for the people that do manage. Those thicker areas, that native vegetation that I always preach, those areas, they're going to be where it's cover equals food. I know I beat that like a dead horse, but I say it for a reason. With the amount of pressure and stuff like that occurred last week, those deer are not going to feel comfortable being exposed. So they're, those thicker areas that, that has food value to it, those are the areas you kind of want to concentrate on. But that's just my opinion.
Well, this time of year, I think a lot of hunters start to shift towards evening sits, and rightfully so, with food being the focus.
Yeah.
But do you have any favorite morning setups that you like to use?
Yeah, I mean, I do. It's not necessarily obviously food plots, but, that position from food to bedding area, try to get them in between those like that. But that's really it in the morning aspect, from food to bedding.
Well, going forward then this next week or so, what do you think that buck activity is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10 in Ohio?
Well, I like to think it'd be a lot higher due to the weather and, the second rut. The rut has been all over the place here, at least in the area that I've been hunting and managing in those places in Ohio. I would like to say it's 6, 7, 8, but it's hard telling. Depends on the weather. And, we have our second gun season coming up, like the 18th, or I think the third weekend, before Christmas, that is. And that's going to throw things off a little bit again. But, I would like to say it's 6, 7, 8, but it all depends on the weather and the amount of pressure that people are going to be putting forth on the landscape. So,
well, good luck with what's left of your season, Eric, and thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime.
All right, and joining us on the line next from Southern Roots Outdoors in Alabama is Adam Bice. Now, Adam, in Alabama, what would you say the buck activity has been lately on a scale of 1 to 10?
Over the last 10 days or so, I'm going to say probably around a 3 to 4. It's been really hot down here lately, like it's been across a lot of the states. Still a few weeks away from the rut in a lot of places, but some other places have seen some action going on early. Our deer herds just kind of vary throughout most of the state. So depending on where you are, you may have already seen some rutting activity, and you may be 3 or 4 weeks away from it in other parts. Had a really good early gun season. Gun season opened up for us on November the 15th. But since then, it's kind of been slow. Like I said, weather, moon phase has really hurt us a little bit, and had a really big mass crop this year throughout pretty much everywhere that I've heard of.
Well, Adam, early into mid-December here, lay out the difference for me from north to south in Alabama. What phases the rut you think they're in, and what's going on with that buck movement?
Yeah, a lot of places, it's not even so much north to south as it is herd by herd. There's a lot of people that hunt out in East Alabama, even Southeast Alabama, they'll tell you that they see a lot of their prime, heavy chasing activity around Thanksgiving, up around the northern part of the state, close to the Tennessee line. You'll see it around Thanksgiving, up to probably last weekend was the big bulk of their rutting activity. And then as you move farther south, or if you move in different pockets, you might not see any rutting activity at all until late January. We actually had to extend our season in Alabama to February the 10th, I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, because of so many late ruts and people just missing out on it totally because our season was ending in January. So it kind of just varies where you're at. For where we are in central Alabama, where our lease is, I'm saying our best dates are probably going to be somewhere around January 10th to the 15th, usually. My favorite days to hunt are the 6th through the 8th. Those are my 3 favorite days to be in the woods, just because that's when we see the most mature bucks looking for those first receptive ones coming in.
Being about a month off of the best rutting activity where you're at in central Alabama, are you starting to see an increase in sign making as far as rubs and scrapes?
Absolutely. I found my first real heavy ground sign, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before that. Found a couple of really good scrape lines going through a big travel corridor, starting to see some scrapes on the edge of green fields. It's starting to, like I said, it's starting to heat up a little bit. They're starting to be on their feet. A lot of it's nighttime activity, just looking at camera pictures and stuff like that. But just seeing that sign get laid down is always exciting, I guess.
How aggressive are you then this time of year? Are you only hunting evenings at this point, or will you do some morning sits?
We definitely do some morning sits. The good thing about Alabama, the kind of the positive and the negative is we don't have a lot of crops. We don't have a lot of row crops out there. But what we get is a lot of timber company land. And with that timber company land comes big 50, 60, 100-acre cutovers. And after those cutovers have been done for 3 or 4 years, that gets thick and nasty. And those bucks love to bed up in those cutovers. And you can access those on the edges. And we have such an extended rifle season down here. You can reach out and touch them and sit there and watch their bedding area in the mornings. And if one has to stand up for anything, that's when you get the chance at them. So we definitely still do the morning hunts. And the afternoon hunts are a little bit more low-pressure hunts, a lot of green fields, acorn flats away from bedding. But right now, it's still really kind of a conservative thing. We haven't really got in there after them right in their core areas yet.
Well, do you see weather play a big role during this part of the season?
Oh, yeah. Right now, the weather fronts are going to be what make you successful or not successful. The deer aren't necessarily up during daylight unless it is right. Over the last week or so, we've had temperatures around 70 every day, and the deer movement has just dropped off to almost nothing. The people who I've talked to that have been hunting have maybe seen one a day. But this weekend, we've got a big cold front pushing through. Actually, the rain's about to get to me in about an hour, and once that rain pushes through, we're going to drop from a high of 72 today to a high of 46 tomorrow. And that's a big swing down here for us. And I think that the next couple of days are going to be really good down here. We got some sun peeking through on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, when the majority of our hunters are going to be in the woods. And you'll definitely see some deer hit the ground out of Alabama this weekend.
Going forward then, this next week or so, what do you think that buck activity is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10?
Buck activity, I'm going to say it should bump up to a 7 or so over the next week. I don't think that it's going to be anything just crazy because we're not really we are still a couple weeks off from the rut in most places, but just the sheer temperatures are going to get them up on their feet. And the fact that it's going to drop down to below freezing at night, and those green fields are going to frost over, they're going to get up and try and eat before the frost hits. And then after the frost burns off, you should see some moving around trying to get some stuff too.
Well, Adam, I'm envious that the best days of hunting are still to come for you, so good luck to you and the rest of Team Southern Ruts.
Appreciate it, man. Have a great day.
Before we get to our next caller, though, let's pause to thank our sponsors at Whitetail Properties. And this week with Whitetail Properties, we are joined by Neil Hogger, a land specialist out of Wisconsin. And Neil is going to be telling us about red flags that buyers should be alerted to when looking at a property.
Well, the typical answer for that is, the neighborhood is always important. If you have a poor neighborhood, that's not going to be good. But secondly, I might add in there, the numbers. Are your goals in line with the number of deer that are there? If you're a trophy hunter or not, are you looking for numbers? You're just looking to have a good time hunting. So those are two important things that you could do your research and basically just find the data. And if the data says, tells the story of what you're looking for, then you would buy it. If not, you wouldn't buy it. But two things that people might not think about that I come across on a fairly regular basis are mineral rights and perhaps abandoned septics, privies, which are outhouses in northern Wisconsin, abandoned wells. These are hazards or potential hazards that are kind of hidden from the average guy. If you don't look into it, you might have yourself a bill to remove those. So if you don't have a budget to take care of the hazards, then it'd be wise maybe to not buy that property. And those are some things I definitely would look for reasons not to buy a property.
If you'd like to learn more and to see the properties that Neil currently has listed for sale, visit whitetailproperties.com/Hogger. That's Hauger. All right, and joining us on the line next is Gerard Cicelli, the owner of Rat Getter Scents. Now, Gerard, in New Jersey, what would you say the buck activity has been lately on a scale of 1 to 10?
I would give it 1 to 10 a 6. I'm not seeing many big bucks moving, but there is a second rut going on. That's definitely something that is going on. I had some chasing of a half rack big 8-point yesterday, but it's been mostly small bucks on the move. Consistent movement, also daylight and nighttime activity.
So with that secondary rut that you've been seeing, have you seen some more sign making as far as rubs and scrapes?
Yes, a lot of rubs have been being made, and I have seen, and I have footage, obviously, of using some of my products in activity on scrapes. It's been consistent of small bucks and the appearance of a bigger buck every now and then, but there are hitting scrapes, and they're definitely making a lot of rubs right now.
Are there any weather fronts coming through that you are keen to as far as that's going to change any movement in New Jersey?
Well, we definitely have a big drop coming temperature-wise. It's definitely going to drop, and maybe in the forecast in a week or so there is some snow to be coming, but definitely going to be a big drop into the 20s, possibly even into the teens, depending on the wind chill.
Well, how does gun season change things for you guys? I know you guys have like a 6-day season taking place right now. How does that change the deer movement? And have you been hearing of any success with that so far?
Oh, there's a ton of success out there. Guys have been really taking a lot of bucks during the gun season. It's mostly a lot of early action, buck going from feeding to bedding area, and then these guys are hunting on edges of fields or things of that nature, and they're getting some shots at some good bucks. But there's a lot of movement out there, and mostly due to, guys getting in the woods and moving deer around, whether it's walking in or walking out or going to drag out a deer or something, and they're pushing deer around. Deer are definitely moving, especially, on state property, public property, where there's a lot of guys hunting and, moving around, and cold weather has something to do with it. Obviously, guys keeping themselves warm and walking around. There's a lot of guys that do hunt on the ground. So definitely guys being in the woods, definitely pushing the movement in the animal from state property maybe to private properties. And that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Well, you referenced food sources a little bit earlier. What are some of your favorite food sources this time of year to focus on in New Jersey?
I freshly have a fresh cut cornfield that borders one of our properties, and there's a lot of movement of deer in the evening coming through, looking to feed. They can tell, their bodies, their senses definitely can tell that there's a cold front coming on and what type of deer it is. And there's a lot of black oaks that I'm noticing that are falling. And I have a couple of areas that I'm going to be hunting over the next few days that have a lot of action on them. These black oaks normally have fallen completely maybe about a month ago or 3 weeks ago, but they're falling heavily right now in my specific area on quite a few trees, and the ground is just torn up. The deer are just trying to put on that body fat. There's not a lot of food sources out there, and once they find those trees, they are on them consistently.
Now, do you have any preferences for this time of year as far as early to mid-December as some scents or attractants to be using in the woods?
Well, this state does allow baiting, which, obviously a lot of guys do take advantage of that. So, corn mixed in some of my products, scented products, attractants, sweet corn scent, pumpkin I've known at this time of the year is a big attractant, whether it be pumpkins or scented pumpkin, which I do make a pumpkin scent, and they really like it a lot. Anything of acorn, because it is just very much attractive to them. They want that body fat on, and a lot of it comes from acorn. So once they pick up on that acorn scent, they definitely, want to come in and investigate. We also have our bear season going on at the same time, which makes it a really, really unique season because you can hunt bears and deer in the same week. And we have kind of a change of governor, so we're hoping guys are getting out there and hunting because our bear hunting may be a thing of the past if this governor has his way with things.
Well, going forward then in this next week or so in New Jersey, what would you say the buck activity is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10?
If you're hunting around food sources, I would imagine you definitely will see some bucks. Bucks or bigger bucks or smaller bucks. That's always what's in your area. But you'll definitely see some buck moving around those food sources as things get more scarce and colder. On rut activity, you'll see some. There's definitely some younger fawns or 1.5 years that are coming in now, or that are latecomers that are coming in that are definitely going to attract some attention from bucks, and that's like what I've seen yesterday.
All right, Gerard. Well, good luck with the rest of your season, and thanks for joining me.
I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you.
All right, and joining us on the line last in the great state of South Dakota is Jake Gregus, a guide with Daybreak Ranch. Now, Jake, in South Dakota, what would you say the buck activity has been lately on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd probably have to say somewhere around 2 or 3. The main rut's tailed off. There's still a few bucks snooping around does, but no real pursuit or chasing going on. At least until the secondary rut that should be starting up here with a few of the doe fawns coming into estrus. But for the most part, bucks are on a winter pattern, bed to feed. They're still hanging in with doe groups, but you don't see them chasing or really dogging does.
Well, you just referenced that secondary rut. Do you have any favorite tactics during that secondary rut, or are you still just looking for food like most guys this time of year?
Yeah, I would say wherever you got high concentrations of does to be checking there. I see a lot of the bucks hanging with anywhere from 5 to 15 does, and they basically follow the does from cover to feed and back in the morning. So they're still hanging around and still showing a little interest in the does, but not really. It's kind of a winter pattern, and I don't see a lot of bucks off on their own. There's usually a couple other bucks around them, and then a few does.
Now, a lot of South Dakota just got hit with a winter storm here early this week. How does that change things for bedding that you see? And I know you have a lot of ground to look at and a lot of deer. How does the bedding change where they're at now versus where they were a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, we've had a really, really good fall. The deer are looking really good going into this winter. So with the weather being so nice, they don't have to be in good cover. They can live out in the middle of the wide open in the prairie and be totally fine. When we get snow and fronts like we did yesterday, we got about an inch or two of snow, and the wind was blowing 45, 50 mile an hour at times. Right before that front, I actually saw a couple hundred deer on the downwind side of some really good shelter belts and good thermal cover. And I saw about 70 deer in a single file line coming over the hill from a mile or two away, headed for that same hay yard cover. So they're bunching up, and they know when those winter storms are coming. So I would say it's changed from deer being spread out, not too worried about winter, to kind of in an instant they're in winter mode and staying close to better cover.
Do you think that there are any other big changes from here through the rest of the season, which ends in 2018, as far as bedding and food? Or do you think what you're going to see the deer doing now is going to be the same thing that they're doing 3 weeks from now?
I think it'll be similar, at least around here. This isn't really a hard winter weather right now, and the deer don't need to really be near thick cover necessarily. The sun will come out in a day or two, and yeah, there might be an inch of snow on the ground, but that's nothing for South Dakota or northern deer. So they'll spread out again a little bit until the next big front. But I don't see any big changes really, other than some of these doe fawns might be coming into estrus, so you might see a little more activity. Bucks maybe cruising a little bit, looking for some of them, downwind sides of bedding areas, or still really following does along instead of branching off on their own and doing their own thing yet. So otherwise, I would say pretty similar to this, unless we get a real wicked storm or something. I see it kind of staying the same. I looked at the extended forecast, and it looks like 30s every day, maybe 40 a few days. So it's not real, what I would say, the bad winter weather yet. So they'll be spread out again.
Going forward then in this next week or so, what do you think that buck activity is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10 in South Dakota?
I would say it's going to be right around that 2 or 3 again, with maybe, a few days in there where it might spike up to 4 or 5 if there are enough of those doe fawns coming into estrus for this what you'd call a secondary rut. You know, certain areas you might see a lot of it. Some places you might not see anything for bucks showing interest in does, and just focus on hunting food sources and bedding and back and forth.
All right, Jake. Well, good luck with that remaining muzzleloader tag, and thanks for joining me.
All right. Thanks, Spencer. Appreciate it.
And that concludes this week's episode of Wired to Hunt's Rut Radio. We want to thank our sponsors, Sitka, Whitetail Properties, Whitetail Institute, Yeti, Matthews, Maven, Huntera, and Trophy Ridge, and we thank you guys for listening. Hope you're staying warm out there hunting this early December as the snow and the cold move in. And as always, stay wired to hunt.
So before we move on, let's take a quick second to thank our partners at Whitetail Properties.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins.